Rick Steves is a popular American travel writer with 60 books to his name. People who are familiar with his travel guides may not realize that as a young man, Steves was a piano teacher with no intention of ever becoming a travel expert. But in 1978, a trip of a lifetime changed his path.
The Hippie Trail, which was the epic road trip back in the 60s and 70s that all the young backpackers were taking from Istanbul to Kathmandu. That was back when the Beatles were going to India to hang out with the Maharishi Yogi and so on. And it was a perfect time for me. I was 23 years old. I'm 3 times as old as that now. And this 60,000 word journal was just hanging out in a box in a closet for decades. I think I read 4 or 5 pages of it, and that was it. And then I finally rediscovered it during COVID, and it was amazingly vivid and unguarded, candid, politically incorrect, raw, introspective.
As it turned out, 1978 was the last year the Hippie Trail could be traversed. The following year, the Shah of Iran had fallen, and the Islamist revolutionary Ayatollah Khomeini took over. Then, the year after that, the Soviet Union invaded Afghanistan.
I had done it. I had documented it intimately. I mean, there's bugs squished onto the pages of this 200-page hardbound empty book that I filled. I documented it with photographs, which I'm not some fancy photographer, but I did a great job of filming that thing as a kid, and it all survived. So I ran it by my publisher, and they said, this is really vivid and fun and unique. We published it. It made, number 3 on the New York Times bestseller list, which I've never been on before. So it's resonated with people, and I'm so thankful that I wrote this journal. I just love the idea of writing a journal to vividly capture all the little butterflies of travel fun that flutter by.
Steves and his travel buddy, Gene Openshaw, were full of youthful energy back then and took many risks on the Hippie Trail, like sleeping in an empty train car parked in the station to save money on a hotel, only to wake up on a moving train going the wrong way. Steves says that while unexpected adventure is still his travel style, it's now tempered by maturity.
Bravado does not mean taking risks. Bravado for me means jumping on serendipity as it presents itself. It means not avoiding culture shock, but seeing culture shock as a constructive thing. Culture shock is the growing pains of a broadening perspective. It just needs to be curated. And as a kid, you take more risks and you jump out of moving trains and you do all sorts of little fun adventures. And it does, if you survive it, amount to some good travel stories. And that's this book. But now what I do is I have a more mature approach to that. I don't take as many risks. I've got enough money to have a good hotel and so on.
Even though you can't travel the Hippie Trail anymore, Steves hopes that young people will still seek out their own coming-of-age journey abroad. In the age of social media, it can be all too easy to follow the crowds to the same trendy, picturesque destinations seen on Instagram or TikTok. Instead, get outside of your comfort zone and take a risk.
I'm inspired by young people that I meet right now that just got back from a Hippie Trail. And that's the beautiful thing, to get out there and become friends with the world. Stop saying have a safe trip. Start saying bon voyage, because it's a beautiful world. And if you don't know that, maybe you don't have a passport.
But is this kind of travel still safe with all of the political unrest happening around the world? While it's always important to travel smart and do your research, Steves says don't let fear hinder you from experiencing a new culture filled with new customs, traditions, languages, and people.
Every year, except COVID, I've spent 100 days overseas since I was a teenager. I know it is safer now to travel than it was back when people said bon voyage. There's no question about it. It's safer now. Statistically, I know statistics are optional for a lot of Americans these days, but statistically it is safer to travel now. When somebody tells me have a safe trip, I'm inclined to say, well, you have a safe stay at home, because where I'm going is safer than where you're staying. And if you're so concerned about safety, can't you just understand that the world would be a safer place if we all traveled a little bit and came home with a passion not for building walls, but for building bridges? We need bridges. We don't need walls. America has to be at the table with the family of nations so we can provide the leadership and the inspiration that the ideals of America are all about. And that's an exciting opportunity. And that's why I'm so passionate about helping and inspiring Americans to get out of their comfort zone and travel. Try Portugal after 6 trips to Orlando.
No matter your age, it's important to always have an open mind when you travel to a foreign country. This is what leads to an eye-opening and fulfilling experience.
I think a lot of Americans are more demanding now. We're more fast. We know what's right. I humble myself when I'm on the road. I like to be thoughtful, and I have a feeling of what's right to me. But I know that the world is not a pyramid with America on top and everybody else trying to figure it out. We're 4% of this planet, and there's 96% out there. And everybody's got their own self-evident and God-given truths. And who am I to say that 800 million Hindus are wrong for taking care of their cows and feeding them better than they take care of their children? I don't understand that, but there's got to be a reason. And I just want to learn about it. I want to go there with an open mind.
As a spiritual person from a Protestant background, he parks his beliefs at the door and becomes, say, a temporary Roman Catholic when he enters St. Peter's Basilica in Rome. This ability to be open to new perspectives is what leads to personal growth.
My travels go much better when I do that. So I've been in a lot of holy places, and I've been in a lot of holy temples. And when I go in there, I'm surrounded with people who I want to respect and learn from and take a quiet moment. And if we had a little bit more of that in this planet, I think we'd be all safer and better off.
Interestingly, in the world of travel books, there's one guidebook that always outsells Steve's most popular guide to Italy. And that's the guidebook to Disney World.
Well, that's a different market. That's La La Land, and that's not my market. I cannot compete with Disneyland. This is reality travel. This is an attempt to broaden your perspective through travel. This is experiential. This is transformational. There's nothing transformational about going to Cancun or going to Vegas or going to Disneyland. That's fun, but for me, I've got some important work to do when I'm on the road. And that's become a citizen of this planet, as well as a more keenly appreciative of my American citizenship. If everybody traveled a little bit, we'd be less fearful, less able to be manipulated by people who want to capitalize on our fear. And I think this world would be a safer and a better place. So let's say bon voyage to that.
Rick Steves' newest book, Rick Steves on the Hippie Trail, Istanbul to Kathmandu, and the Making of a Travel Writer, is available now wherever books are sold. You can learn more about his work by visiting our website at viewpointsradio.org. For more behind the scenes, search Viewpoints Radio on Instagram, X, and Facebook. This story was written and produced by Polly Hansen. Our executive producer is Amira Zaveri. Our studio manager is Jason Dickey. I'm Marty Peterson.